Recording in progress.
Welcome in to the latest episode of Betting the Pitch, the European Soccer Edition. I'm your host, Real_G Warner. I'm joined by no one, as this is a solo pod, but we're going through Champions League late night with the Real_G Warner per usual. I got to make sure I tweet this out so people know that we are live. If you want to throw some questions in here, please do so, or feel free to comment anywhere. Leave a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts. We're on Spotify. Leave a comment or subscribe on YouTube at the Real_G Warner. Same on Instagram if you want the 1-minute video. That should be tweeted out, so I think we should be good. And my computer's running out of memory, so let's see how well this goes. I think it's time to get started. I will have an ultimate best bet end of show like we do always. Hit our best bet on last week's episode, Real Madrid, in a very, very dramatic comeback victory. Didn't need a whole victory, just needed a draw to cover the half of a goal that I had given out. But wow, what a first leg, and plenty more, I guess, to come in terms of fireworks in that one, hopefully. But yeah, we're 31-11 now as a loser in the Europa League on Thursday. But it's been a pretty good run. I'm going to try to keep that going as long as possible. No one thought it would get this long, but still hitting nearly 75%, just one victory under it after a loser last week, as I already mentioned, or else we'd be really, really crushing it. Just kidding. I think anything in the 70s is pretty dominant, and we're going to try to keep that going as long as possible. So on this episode, I'm going to go through the Champions League leg 2 of the round of 24. Then we'll get down to 16, then to 8, and stick with this podcast. Feel free to hit subscribe, and you won't miss another episode going the rest of the way. We'll see what happens and how long until this time's out, until I run out of memory. But we'll start on Tuesday, the 18th of February, with AC Milan hosting Feyenoord. Total is 3, a little bit more juice to under, and Feyenoord are a 1.25 goal underdog on the road. All the juice on Milan at home. Aggregate numbers. So Feyenoord had a 1-0 victory despite Milan putting out the most attacking lineup I think I've seen for Milan since I've been covering the sport. That's about the 6th year now. Surprising, but especially surprising that they were shut out. And now they get to go home back to San Siro, which I went to a couple seasons ago. Awesome place to watch a match. I know they're, I think, building a new stadium for both Inter and for Milan to share, but we'll see how that all goes. Feyenoord, the big problem for them here, other than being away from home, is really just missing their home crowd, because it is so dominant. All the Dutch clubs, they are so backed, if that's even a phrase, by their supporting fan bases. And this is going to be tough going on the road to Italy, facing a much higher budgeted club like Milan, especially considering Feyenoord. And what really kept me off Feyenoord in this first leg was when they sold their striker to their Champions League knockout round opponent, and Santi Jimenez, starter for Milan after being the heart and soul of Feyenoord, though didn't really start every match in their Champions League run this season. But Feyenoord got a huge win in the first leg. I was basically hate watching, just rooting against it the whole time because I was so close to playing it. But at this point, it's hard to argue with what we've seen from Milan. They are so inconsistent, so hard to trust. Had a really close win this past weekend as well. I think it was at home or maybe on the road to Verona. Not an impressive win, one they needed, and 3 points is 3 points. But I think there's a lot to question about Milan. Therefore, Milan, a 1-0 deficit heading into the second leg. Road goals don't matter, which is better for Milan here. But I think we're going to see Milan play a similar lineup and just go out all aggressive, all attacking. And what that will do is allow Feyenoord to get out on a counterattack. I don't really think Feyenoord were really that type of club. Arne Slot had just moved from Feyenoord to Liverpool, and they're, to me, a different squad than we've seen from other Dutch clubs that just try to outscore you. I think that's part of the Arne Slot background, but he's no longer there, so hard to really cite him. What I think Feyenoord do, though, is they know they're the lower budgeted, weaker team on the road, and they're going to try to hang on for dear life to that 1-goal advantage. That means that anything they can do to try to keep it a low-scoring game, a goalless draw will certainly get them through to the next round of the knockouts in Champions League. That's a big deal. And I think for that reason, I'm interested in Feyenoord getting more than a goal of insurance, because at 1-1 on aggregate, if Milan take a 1-0 victory, then this is going to extra time. And this is a huge scenario where Milan are very happy in the last few minutes to go to extra time, most likely, and don't want to take any chances. Whereas Feyenoord, in a better situation where they're drawing or ahead, or in the situation where they are drawing, I expect them to continue to defend. And that plays really well into both a Feyenoord plus 1.25, but also the under 3, I think, as well. So there are, I think, all signs kind of point to under here, and that's something I'm certainly interested in. We'll see what that ends up looking like with game time, but it looks like, honestly, and kind of I would expect more money to come in on Milan. They're at home, bigger club, bigger name by far, but they really didn't do it, and they have to score at home, and they have to score more than once to beat you against the spread, and probably more than once to hit an over. So I think there's a lot of direction this goes that is not the way Milan want it to. And I like to be against the big name clubs in these continental competitions. Now, the two advanced number, Feyenoord plus 145, and I'll try to get, I was doing a little bit of marking down of previous lines. So entering in, and Feyenoord have actually climbed from when I looked at it, I guess, yesterday. But they're currently plus 145 to move through. That's not a huge jump, but up from the plus 142 that I initially saw. Whereas Milan have climbed from minus 175 to minus 180. Initially, Feyenoord were plus 190, got all the way up to plus 260 before kickoff, where Milan had climbed from minus 240 all the way to minus 325. I mean, those are big jumps. I can actually do this math. I should have done this the first time, but I'll do this now to move. Let's see, to move where I guess Milan went to from open to close. To me, it seems like something meaningful. Let's see if it actually comes out. So they climbed 26.15%, Milan, from minus 240 to minus 325. So clearly all the money was coming in on Milan. Feyenoord had jumped from plus 190 to plus 260. That's about a 27% increase. Surprising to see a little bit better climb, and probably because the handle shrunk, because BetOnline, Sportsbetting.ag. If you're not a member, go follow links to the podcast description on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and on YouTube, and get some free money, or just slide in my DMs at @thereal_G Warner across any social media platform. But clearly, Feyenoord are the side that this books were looking for, at least this sports book that I cited all my lines. And that does make me think that this is a really great situation for Feyenoord. And clearly, they're going to be the less popular team that will continue to be bet against right until kickoff. So I'll be looking for Feyenoord and for the under on this early matchup, the standalone match at 11:45 Central Time, 12:45 Eastern Time here in the United States on February 18th, the year of our Lord 2025. Move next to Bayern München, as I am wearing their shirt. Not really a Bayern fan, hardly ever bet on them, I gotta say. But I did walk by a team store in München or in Munich a couple years ago, and I'm just a sucker for Bayern stuff, I guess. But Bayern, 2.25 goal favorites to Celtic right now. Totals 3.75. Juice slightly more to over. More juice on the Bayern side. What a surprise. Another big club. I guess if you haven't seen the logo, here it is. And I might be wearing pants. We'll see. Celtic on the other side, I thought they were very competitive in the first leg. Are down 1-2 or 2-1 on aggregate to Bayern München. So, I mean, Celtic, clearly this goal spread has very little to do with where this number is or anything like that. But ultimately, Celtic are a huge underdog, and they need to win on the road in Bavaria to find a way to just equalize and get to extra time. And they have to win by 2 goals to avoid extra time to go through. Bayern did have Bayer Leverkusen this weekend on the road, really tough, and all determining for the Meisterschale, their return to potentially trying to take the German Bundesliga title after 1 year not on the top slot, not the top Arne slot, but I guess that's a lame joke at this hour. From a Celtic point of view, I mean, they've been really good in Scotland, but I think of course, they want to beat Rangers as much as they can, but they also want to find a way deeper in the Champions League. I mean, it's amazing from when Ange Postecoglou was there before he took the Tottenham job, and Celtic were just not competitive against bigger clubs in continental play. Bring in Brendan Rodgers, who was, I think, beleaguered quite a bit at Leicester City, though seemed like a pretty good manager. And at least when he left, things went haywire. And I think we'll see a pragmatic style. I think we'll see this number keep climbing. No reason to see it stopping, honestly. And Bayern Munich probably deserve it because they're awesome and are very scary to fade at home. I don't know who is potentially betting Celtic here. Like it's been, I guess, relatively stable tonight, to Monday night heading into Tuesday on match day. But man, total is high. I mean, we could see 4. I'd love to see a push there. I think what we see is Celtic try to get a goal, but they're not going to be anything more than pragmatic. They're going to have to try to catch Bayern Munich, who always gives opportunities, which does make any sort of underplay a concern. One, for Bayern Munich's scoring ability, but also for their inability to prevent chances, because they just give them away. That's kind of how they play, and they're used to it, and they're okay with it. It's gone on for years. I thought Vincent Kompany would be a little bit more pragmatic, and I think he has been. Was leading the Bundesliga in fewest goals allowed heading into a couple of weeks ago. So things have been going well for Bayern. But at this point, it's hard to say because they already have an advantage. They're a huge favorite. They could draw this match and still move through, though I think that would be pretty nerve-wracking. But they have to win by 3 goals to take your money if you bet Celtic against the spread. And I imagine this number gets bigger as we get closer to kickoff. The problem is, who is like, I don't know who's doing it. And that probably means that you make this number as high as you possibly can. I think there's surely value on Celtic, maybe less on under than Celtic, because I feel like Celtic are probably the least popular bet to make in this matchup. But that's the side I like. Celtic getting more than 2 goals. This is a lot, even from a very good and much more powerful side like Bayern. And I lean, I think, more strongly to under 3 3/4. I don't think that Celtic are likely to score 2 goals. Let's see their team total. It's probably a half. It is, and it's juiced slightly to the over. So like, if Celtic don't score, I think they're going to be playing with their hearts as like, they're going to be trying really hard. The problem is when that first goal goes in for Bayern Munich, and if it's early, man, this could get ugly. And because then Celtic have to come out. But I think they're still going to try to make this game. They know they're huge underdogs. They know they've almost no chance to move through. I think we see a very defensive game plan, obviously, and I think that caters to under 3 3/4. The big problem is if Celtic score early, but then they're ultimately, if they do score and they go ahead 1-0, let's say, in some crazy world where this actually happens, they are then in a great position to fight even harder and to use that much momentum that they have to try to keep Bayern out. And I love that idea, and I love that strategy. Tempted by it under 3 3/4. I think I like it more than the 2 1/4 on Celtic, because you basically get an extra goal and a half to play with. But man, I don't know who's doing Celtic and under, but that feels like, if you're a gambler, that's one to do. And man, that can be a really tough 2 hours to watch. But it might be worth it. Might pay off. Maybe it splits and you get out of there losing a little bit of juice, and you live to tell about it another day. In terms of 2 advanced numbers, we have Bayern a minus 8,000 to get through versus Celtic 1,500. So quite a bit of a handle there, as you probably expect and see at any sports book. Unfortunately, I'm not really shilling for that. But that's quite a climb. Let's see. Bayern were as high as minus 1,700 to get through. So basically about what Celtic is paying to advance right now. They were as high as 9-1 odds to move through, now 15-1. So those things are pretty significantly different. I think, let's see, is there a way for me to do this quickly mathematically? Let's see, if we were 1,500, and then I'll do this versus the top one. Sorry, I'm doing Excel work live on stream. I mean, it's doubled. I guess that's probably easy. You should know that. It's late night though. Give me a break. But 7.5-1 all the way up to 15-1, even 9-1 up to 15-1. I mean, it's a pretty big jump. 40% versus 50%. I mean, so basically the numbers have doubled. On the buy-in side, I mean, it's even worse. Let's see. That number is it's 82.5% worse off of a price if you were looking to play Bayern now and just didn't feel comfortable with them on the road in the first leg in Glasgow. Man, that's tough. And let's see, from the closing number, it was only 79%. So not much different, I gotta say, but wild nonetheless. I think, I'm not saying I'm really not saying that there's any sort of idea that this is a good idea to play Celtic to move through. I'm going to leave it at that and move on to the next game because I've already spent too much time here. I think is probably the best way to think about it. So let's do that. Let's go over to Benfica and Monaco. So this was a really wild matchup. Monaco, who have no home field advantage really whatsoever. Started a newly signed, had already only played one match with Monaco at central midfield. Really curious decision by Adi Huta. I don't know if that was a result of not having enough bodies available. And Al Musrati, coming in straight from Besiktas in Turkey, decided to flash a little hand gesture to get a yellow card to his opponent. Well, he was already on a yellow and got sent off. And now Monaco are down 1-0 away from home at Benfica after playing with 10 men for a very long time. Not really how you draw it up, I'll say. Benfica on the other side, they're a half a goal favor right now. Juice is split both ways, -110. Total is 3, just all the way to over. I think that's predicting that we see some goals scored. We didn't see any in the first leg, but Monaco had to fight with 10 men to try to keep it as low scoring as possible to give them a chance here, and they have one. But they have to win away just to force extra time, and that's going to be tough to do. With that said, Monaco is half a goal underdog. If they are drawing at the final buzzer, Benfica are playing like every man inside their own defensive end, trying to keep Monaco from scoring, and that feels really nice with an underdog price tag in your pocket. And maybe they score late. Unfortunately, you have to worry about them sending their goalkeeper forward. Welcome to the late night with the real _G Warner as he continues to yawn. And the eyes look super bloodshot. I swear I only had one glass of wine tonight. But anyway, I think the Benfica side, I mean, they've been so up and down. The game, the collapse, I think you probably call it, against Barcelona was incredible. But to me, I mean, Benfica's, they look great. I mean, Portuguese clubs do really well in this competition. I feel like the French ones have done well too. I mean, getting Brest to get through alongside Monaco and PSG. None of them advanced via bye, but to get here, I think all three was huge for Ligue 1 in France. But the different, I mean, I played against Monaco this weekend, fell behind 1-0, barely got out of the blocks after 4 minutes, but then took a red card on the 8th minute, and it was a 7-1 final, and things got really ugly really fast. And I think that's huge for Monaco confidence. Definitely huge for a tongue lashing for me if I could ever see Nantes and like, what are you doing after you're up on 1-0 on the road and against a team that needed any sort of help to even like turn into something. But I think Monaco get up for Champions League. They've done much better in Champions League after performing poorly in Liga at times. And I think there's been some really good opportunities to back them, like against Aston Villa earlier this year in Champions League, if I remember correctly. But this is going to be a tough one. Going on the road to Lisboa or Lisbon in Portugal, there's going to be, I mean, a big crowd there. Monaco are used to playing really without much support, though, so that's not a terrible thing. They're pretty used to it. I really like the idea that Monaco are celebrating when they're eliminated in a goalless draw or a scoring draw, whatever type. And if they win, they're going to be holding on for dear life to try to force extra time, most likely. Benfica are going to be going all out for it. And if they're ahead, Monaco, that is, and then you're still in great position to cover. So Monaco getting a half a goal, I like. I lean to under 3 because I don't know that Monaco are going to be, I mean, they haven't been the goal scoring team this season. I do think that's partly because Adi Huto is more a defensive counterattacking manager, though that's not exactly how Monaco have built their club by any means. I do think that Benfica still, I think they have nightmares from their collapse against Barcelona, and that might impact how they play here. So what a surprise. I lean to underdog and under yet again. In terms of 2 advanced number here, we have Monaco plus 475, which that'll happen when you have second leg away and you are behind on aggregate. Let's see. There was a number. So they closed plus 115 up from an initial 110 number. So very little movement. Benfica had climbed from minus 135 to minus 140, 3.5% climb on Monaco up 4.5 or so. Now plus 475 and minus 700. I mean, those are big changes to say the least. And let's see, let's go from the jump. So it did not work out. When trying to do Excel live goes wrong. Yeah, so 77% jump from Monaco plus 110 opener that I first saw up to plus 475, minus 700 Benfica. So that's an increase of 80.71%. So, I mean, that's what happens when you go away from home. You're down a man, but he's not a huge piece. And who really cares about a new signing, though certainly going to be looking to see who's starting in midfield for Monaco in the starting lineups in Champions League this week. I wonder how much they're really kicking themselves for making that decision. But it will not be Al Musrati, I will say that. I don't think there's much I can talk about more with the two advanced number, and this is going to be the longest podcast in history for the fewest amount of games. So let's move next to Atalanta. Speaking of drama, 1-goal favor right now at home to Club Brugge of Belgium. Total is 3, juice all the way to under, and all the juices on Atalanta right now, probably climbing to 1.25 as it's been jockeying back and forth from there. If you had under, oh my God, Atalanta had the ball late as the match was winding down, about to head home. 1-1 on aggregate, and Isaac, I think, or Hien, Hien, decided to ward off his defender, try to get this in the camera, and went a little bit open-handed right into the guy's mouth. And Bruges player acts like his whole family had been shot, goes down, and they award a penalty. I don't really think that's how we should be doing this, but I mean, with the love interests for all these referees and giving penalties, and there's no chance they're going to overturn it with VAR to say, oh, it wasn't hard enough, like pushing the guy's face. Amazing. But it's really going to seem like it's really unfair if Atalanta move through here. Go home here and Bruges move through, because they are basically handed the next stage on a silver platter, and it's going to make him a huge underdog to one of the best clubs in Europe, unfortunately. So we can all root for Atalanta to potentially avenge and have a big win here, but they really struggled this weekend, and honestly have been struggling for a lot of this campaign. They were in the race for the Scudetto in Italy, the championship, but I think poor performances have come and gone, and that's really impacted them, though Napoli can't stop drawing, so maybe that's not dead yet. And the rest of Italy is hard to trust, though Inter Milan, I think, is the best club there, and will prove to be it at some point. With that said, I think from an Atalanta perspective, I mean, they are super talented and have a great manager and are very aggressive, but have been more pragmatic over the years. They're not all out attack as they had been. Bruges are a very defensive side. They have good players and good talent, but it's not on the same level as Atalanta, nor anyone else in this competition at this level, I don't think, besides maybe Celtic. And we saw Bruges back there under on the road at Manchester City a couple match days ago that kept Manchester City and got them advancing into this round from being out of the knockouts and sneaking their way in. And Bruges were really good defensively and took a lead against Manchester City, which was, I think, fine until they conceded an equalizer and then conceded an own goal on a ball that probably would have been cleared. And if they don't concede the lead to Manchester City, they might have won the match, or at least drawn, and Manchester City wouldn't even be here, which I guess would have cost me a best bet winner from last week's episode. But, would have been nicer to win the under in that time, I think. I'd rather have a 1-0 that way back in the past than 1-1 later, future value and such. Future value money, of course. But I think Bruges are going to go in and fight like heck. They lose the first goal. They concede the first goal. They're still defending. And I think that's really good for under 3, especially with a very valuable push on 3, though it's very juiced at the moment at BetOnline or Sportsbetting.ag. If you don't have an account with one of those, make one at the place you haven't and get some first-time depositors, even though it's the same lines, same everything, same bonus structure, same all that sort of stuff. Go take advantage of it. I highly recommend. Slide in my DMs at the _G Warner across any social media platform. If you need a link, I will make one for you. I think Club Bruges are probably less interested in me as a 1-goal underdog. I'll certainly be waiting to see them climb to a 1.25. And I would suggest any of you that want to bet that to happen, certainly do it. I think there's more value on under 3 here, though, and that's my biggest surprise, surprise, dog and under in all these matches. But I think Atalanta Bruges under 3 is my favorite to speak of so far. So I'll put that as my ultimate best bet option for Tuesday. And then we're still going to go through the entire Wednesday card. Oh, actually, and I can't leave off the 2 advanced numbers. So Bruges now down to plus 115, Atalanta minus 140. Wow. I mean, that is very cheap. So Atalanta were at one point minus 330, had been bet down to minus 300, down 10%. Which is interesting. And I don't think that there's anything to report on the that late call, but certainly reflected surprise a little bit in terms of the money, though certainly people could be taking the home underdog, and it was a pretty small number at only getting a quarter of a goal anyway, which had me interested in thinking about it, also thinking about under as well, which died a horrible death in the last seconds of stoppage time. But welcome to soccer betting, folks. In terms of where this number is moved, it actually is completely, so Bruges minus 121 or almost 122%, Atalanta minus 136%. So Atalanta is still favored to move through, even one goal down on aggregate, which I guess is similar to scenario for Milan, though they're minus 180. Much bigger favorite, same deficit. I guess that shows the difference between Milan, or the discrepancy between Milan and Feyenoord versus Atalanta and Bruges. I mean, that's a lot of respect for Milan's side that's been really, really struggling. Man, that makes me really like Feyenoord. Oh, even more. I didn't even mean to do that. But I mean, honestly, I was thinking about it initially, but I never pulled the trigger because that Milan lineup scared me so much. But man, I mean, I guess it's not apples to apples because it's kind of transit property. These are different scenarios, but one was 1-0, one was 2-1. Road goals don't matter, so like, who cares? Milan are really in much deeper trouble than Atalanta, who just have been maybe not winning matches lately. Milan have just been all over the place and are so hard to trust. And if they win their match in regulation, they don't cover the spread. I guess that's probably what it reflects, is that they're a much bigger favorite. Though it's really not that different. I guess it's a very juiced 1.25 favorite are Milan versus Atalanta. So maybe that says something about it. Total is higher in the Milan Feyenoord match slightly, which does make that underdog price a little bit less valuable. But I'm still, man, this is not doing a good job of trying to keep me to making less plays, I must say. So that's something I'm going to investigate a little bit further. I don't know that I want to play Feyenoord necessarily to advance, but it's weird that there's a discrepancy there. And I would love for someone who's live with me right now. Please, anybody live with me, please say something that tells me you agree with what I'm saying, because honestly, comments are live. They'll show up if you say something, I think. I'll find a way to put them up there. But man, and this episode's going super long. Already on 28 minutes on just the Tuesday episode. And I don't think it's a wine talking. But man, that makes me very interested here. Move to Wednesday. As we already got a best bet selection. If you didn't remember it, stick around to the end of the show, and I'll smash it all together for 1 minute video at @thereal_Gward on YouTube and on Instagram, depending which place you like better. And tell me if you like it somewhere else. Let me know, and I'll upload it a third time. But Borussia Dortmund, a half a goal favorite at home to Sporting Lisboa. All the juice on Sporting. Total is 2 3/4, and it is juiced more to the over. Interesting, considering, if I'm not mistaken, Dortmund were a 3-0 victor in Champions League. Let's see. Borussia Dortmund Champions League. They were a 3-0 victor. So they're pretty much going through. But they are favored at home based on, I guess, Sporting. So I was really, really hurt when these two teams were pushed against each other, because I wanted to bet against both of them because they've been so bad versus expectations, especially. Sporting Lisboa were basically an automatic bet against as favorites once Ruben Amorim left. Borussia Dortmund have been in a fade anytime they're away from home, except in Champions League. They've been better, and they somehow scored 3 goals and conceded none in Lisboa last week, and then proceeded to lose on the road to their near neighbor, VfL Bochum, were bottom of the Bundesliga. I mean, it's hilarious. Niko Kovac, the first Borussia Dortmund manager to lose his first 2 matches in the Bundesliga. They are so bad in Germany. It's amazing. And I guess I am saying it wearing an FC Bayern little long sleeve t-shirt. But man, I've not been to a Bayern match. I have been to a Dortmund match, and I sat in the yellow wall or stood because there were no seats, standing room only. Yikes. But it was fun. It was legit. A lot of beer thrown on me. A lot of people just screaming things I couldn't understand. And a lot of Scheisse, no fear, sha la 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 la, which I then had to translate to a friend of mine who thought they were saying no fear. I was like, dude, they're not speaking English, but whatever. That was a 0-4, no fear. Man, Sporting Lisboa, do they give up and they don't even try here? So they're focused on the Portuguese Liga, where they've already sacked a manager since Ruben Amorim left. The golden boy, who might be leaving Manchester United soon if I haven't missed a story. With all that said, this one probably has no interest for me in under, because there could be a ton of scoring. Sporting Lisboa need 3 to force extra time at the very least. So they're going to be going for it. And maybe we see Dortmund trying out a counterattacking style, but that's not going to be good for them. Their defenders are hilarious. The back pass from Niklas Süle this weekend, LOL, what a pass for Masuras, so that the Bochumites could be playing Greek music at the end. Because like, oh my God, we found a goal scorer. He got 2 today. Though one was literally on the goal line that he kicked in. Stole one from Hofmann, but whatever. Man, Sporting Lisboa, I mean, that's the side I want here, getting a half of a goal. I mean, they could win 1-0. You cover your spread, not even close, and they're so mad at the kickoff or at the final whistle. 2-0, probably even more mad. And then, I mean, all these scenarios, like, I don't think you have to worry about a goalkeeper being sent up and losing a goal late against an empty net, because, like, I mean, I guess unless they have made no progress, but sheesh. Who trusts Dortmund to get through here? Raise your hands. I mean, I'm the only one in this apartment, so probably nobody, but I'm definitely not raising my hand. Man, we're getting crazy tonight. I guess the wine did hit a little bit harder than I thought. They did pretty big pour, I must say. Malbec, in case you were wondering. Yeah, so Sporting Lisboa, half a goal. I'm definitely into that in the early window on Wednesday. Didn't want to back that team, I got to say, and was pretty close to backing Dortmund in the last round, but didn't do it. And, you know, maybe that was a big mistake. / it was, because they won 3-0. In terms of the 2 advanced number here, let's go to – we don't have one up. Damn. Well, that would be a lottery ticket. I mean, Dortmund did make it to the Champions League final last year, and I thought outplayed Real Madrid, as usually happens in Champions League, but that doesn't seem to matter. I'm going to be waiting to see that number. Man, it might be worth, as my guy Mackenzie used to say, Mackenzie Rivers, when we were doing the pregame.com soccer best bet before things went haywire. It's good enough for a pizza bet. I think it could be. Now to the big window. We'll go the PSG hosting Stade Brestois, Ligue 1 versus Ligue 1 crime, unfortunately, as PSG, I believe, are also up 3-0. It did push the total. Unfortunately, I did not get the 3.25. That sucked. Would have won half a bet instead. Push was nice, but the plus money I all got on the 3 gets returned to the book and does not make it back to my account, unfortunately. I feel like that should change, but that's a whole nother debate. PSG 2-goal favorites at home, despite a 3-0 aggregate advantage. All the juice on PSG as well. Totals 3.5. Juice more to the over. PSG probably play their best for 60 minutes and then focus on the weekend, would be my guess. Stade Brestois, we'll see from their lineup if they're trying for this. They probably know they're dead and buried. They haven't had a lot of success against PSG, to say the least. Hadn't had a lot of success even staying in Ligue 1, but barely did it. And then somehow ended up in Champions League last year. Wow. But man, it's a big price. I'll put it that way. I think it's gigantic. Total's 3.5, which is also gigantic for a Brest game, though away from home, not so much, especially now at the Parc des Princes in Paris. Man, I think I like the Brest side more than I like the total. I think we could see some goals here, and that's Joe Dollar's probably loving this podcast, hearing all of me talking, at least for the Wednesday side, because I did like all the unders in the first day on Tuesday. But man, Stade Brestois, put that on the list, getting +2. looks like it'll move to 2.25, probably maybe a 2.5 before kickoff. I don't think they get embarrassed. There's a chance though that things can get really ugly, but like I think Sabra, they know who they are. This is a chance for them to compete against the best in Liga. I think that prepares them because they haven't been great in Liga this season, probably because they've been using some of their best players and resources in Champions League, and they don't stretch that far in Northwestern France. But yeah, they're not even their home stadium. But the nice part is they've been playing Guingamp this whole time, so they're not even Guingamp maybe. They're not hurting. I mean, it's going to be hard away at PSG, but like, does the fans care? Do their ultras really? They're probably going to start some fights at some point. They've been really quiet on that front for a while. I'll move on. Do we have a 2 advanced number? Of course not. So we'll move to last 2 matches on Wednesday, and then we'll get out of here with an ultimate best bet. PSV Eindhoven, a quarter goal favorite at home to Juventus, totals 2.75. Juices split both ways. All the juice on Juve, potentially falling down to pick them. The Juve story is hilarious. They are winning every match, including the Derby d'Italia this weekend at home to Inter Milan. Seemed like they survived, and then they put a lot of pressure on Inter at the end of the first half, and then scored a goal and held on. Literally a Thiago Motta special, under an underdog. Magnifique bets that my Juve fan just decided to. He's like, no, you can't do that. And I was like, Juve have been so bad, and they've been so lucky. They've been no showing against the worst teams in Serie A, somehow stealing wins late. They did sort of do that, but they didn't fall behind against the best club in Italy. And then, honestly, in this first leg matchup, they stole a win, took a lead, conceded an equalizer, and then stole a win late. That's just like how Juve have been doing it. I don't trust them to do it. It's going to be hard away from home. Eindhoven, they have to go for a win, so it's a quarter goal favorite. That does make the end of game scenario much more likely that there's an empty netter scored when Eindhoven send their goalkeeper up, but that's if they are trailing on aggregate. If it's by more than a goal, then it won't matter for Juventus. I guess it could matter because you only win half your bet on the quarter goal right now. But I mean, Eindhoven in front of their crowd is going to be great, but they, I mean, they weren't that bad. They were very close to escaping Torino with a draw and then being in a great position to move through or to advance. Man, I think I'm interested in Juventus taking the confidence from this weekend. And even though they didn't play Locatelli till the end, which is bizarre that they would save him against their biggest rival-ish in Serie A, though I guess Champions League is more likely for them to win because they're probably not catching the leaders, though Napoli have been horrible, so I don't know why you'd say that. But I guess because you've drawn so many matches so far this season. But to that end, I mean, that does make sense that they're worth looking at. I want to see where this number finishes, but the current Juve getting a quarter of a goal. It's weird to see them an underdog 2 straight matches, though Inter at home certainly explains that. I don't know that I was very impressed by Eindhoven, I got to say, though they did equalize. We're in position to potentially go with tied on aggregate to a home match, and that would have been huge for them. I feel like I need to look at their talent a little bit more. And honestly, I mean, you could argue Walter Benitez was at fault, though I feel like we give a lot of blame to goalkeepers when it's really hard to stop the balls that are coming into the box from the side, and to like catch them all. It's just hard to do, especially if there's any difficulty away. Jordi Shelton, we know from playing in Liga, I want to say, or was he from Serie A, or was he in Bundesliga? Anyway, it's not that important, but there's talent, and Luke de Jong is always very scary for a header. We saw Ivan Perisic show up and score a goal. Of course, that dude is so awesome. I'm so happy I saw him playing for Croatia in Vienna against Austria when he and Modric just dominated for an evening and an international break after the Oktoberfest. Wow, what a trip. I think, man, I mean, there's a lot of ways I can go in this one. I don't really love the idea of fading Eindhoven's home crowd, but I do think Juve are a better side, and they're going to play very defensively here. So maybe under 2.75 is my biggest interest in that matchup. In terms of two advanced numbers, we have Juventus minus 250 to get through versus 2-1 odds on Eindhoven. Since they had the second leg at home, I was thinking getting PSV Eindhoven before this match, and I'm glad I didn't, because I would put them in a really tough spot considering they are trailing on aggregate, though they are at home, so that's not the worst thing in the world. In terms of movement from the initial, we're up 36% on Juventus minus 160 to minus 250. Number barely budged, climbed only 1.5% on Eindhoven from plus 130 to plus 132. Now we're 2-1 odds. So that's an increase of 34%. That tells me there's a lot. I mean, because Juve are clearly the bigger name, way more success. So it seemed like there was a lot of people betting that Eindhoven would do something here in this leg, and I don't think anyone is giving up on that. So maybe under 2.75 is the best way to go. That'd be a high-scoring Juventus match. Good chance you see it land 3 and lose half your bet, but I think it's a good chance that it falls much lower than that with much fewer goals. And last but not least, we'll get to Real Madrid, Manchester City, I guess bearing the lead a little bit, but ultimately that was the best bet winner, ultimate best bet last week. That improved us to 31 and 10 at the time to 76%, but then we lost in Europa League, unfortunately. Real Madrid, half a goal favorite at home to Manchester City. A little bit more juice on City. Totals 3.75. Juice very heavily to under right now. / looks like we're going to get back to 3.5. In terms of where I made this number, I do think there's some value in discussing that. So I had made, before this all came out, I made my lines for the home match and the road match, essentially both legs, and then looked at numbers. I had Manchester City a 3/8 favorite, or 3/8 underdog on the road at Real Madrid, so between 1/4 and 1/2. Then I bumped that down to 1/4 goal underdog, I think because they were behind an aggregate. And my total did climb from 3.13 nearly pi to 3.5, and it looks like we're going to head back to that number. So I feel pretty close to kind of where this number is trending. I just don't know who's betting under in this matchup, because Real Madrid, their defense is missing anyone they'd want to start, basically. And they're forced to put Tchouaméni at central defensive midfielder, or what he wants to be in that position, and move him back from his 6 into a center back. And he doesn't want that. And it's been honestly a trooper, because he's done it for 2 seasons now. And Real Madrid somehow didn't sign any center backs despite having none healthy, which is very curious to me. Maybe they spent too much money on Kylian Mbappe, and he certainly hasn't delivered yet, but he did find a way to shin in a goal. Man, thank you for that, Kylian. Formerly the best player in the world. I'm not sure he's that anymore, but a long way to go. On the Man City side, in what place are you expecting them to stop anybody? Man, Joe Dollar's loving the Wednesday card. Overs galore. More overs than I can even think of. But I guess that's probably where I lean. I would love to see this number come down. I don't think we'll ever get to 3. That would probably be a buy price for me, even though I don't bet overs, as anyone who listens to this podcast. For the years I've been doing it, betting the pitch on Apple Podcast, Spotify, and on YouTube at @the_Real_G Warner, plus on Instagram if you want the 1-minute videos straight to your phone. You can even turn notifications on if you want. Man, the City side here is, I guess, besides, I like over. Now, in terms of what Man City are going to do here, I mean, for taking 2 leads and somehow leaving their homes on trailing on aggregate is hilarious. And honestly, I'm finding so much joy in fading Manchester City, because it's been keeping me solvent, I think, among other things. But Real Madrid, I mean, half a goal favorite at home, probably should be due to the Bernabeu, and they play very well there. It's just, man, Manchester City, they have a lot of talent, but I just don't believe in it. And I don't think they can defend. So the way Manchester City can reverse a 3-2 aggregate deficit away is just by outscoring Real Madrid, because they're going to need to score a ton. And that makes me think that over is very much in play, though. Honestly, these competitions, Champions League, Europa League's seen a ton of goals this year, but Champions League, I think it plays to a lot more defensive style, because there actually are capable defenders in these teams, though you can't really say that for this matchup. So I can almost throw that out. But that's generally the rule to me in Champions League. You see low scoring matches, you see much less stoppage time than you do in the league matches. Plus, we see the best defenses and the best defenders in the world in this competition. And these two clubs don't have them, despite the big names. So I guess I got to put that on my list. Over 3.5, 3 3/4. So I'm not sure I could ever play that. I think I did play that with like a Dortmund and Leverkusen match a few seasons ago. And I had a couple winners like that, maybe a Bayern match as well. I guess 2-2 is not impossible to get there. We saw 3-2 with some late goals in the first leg, but that's probably my interest. I don't think I want much to do with Manchester City, though I could see certainly some value in playing them as an underdog because you get to be against the Real Madrid defense that has similar problems. To advanced number, we have Manchester City plus 360, Real Madrid minus 500, 1-5 odds for Real Madrid. Excuse me. I don't know who's betting that. Like, how can you trust the Real Madrid defense? You can't. Which I think is good because there's no chance I'll be playing under on this matchup and watching 6 goals go in or something like that. But it could be wild. There's probably a lot of entertainment value. I mean, everyone's watching this match, I'm sure, of all these other on the list because that was the number one match that my Juventus friend had said coming into this he was most excited for, and you should be because it's not going to be defensive at all. I can't see it. I mean, maybe in those weird circumstances that you get one of those to happen. In terms of 2 advanced numbers, so we saw Manchester City plus 110 at home. I think because the second leg was away, dropped to plus 108, a drop of about 2%, whereas Real Madrid dropped about 5.5% from minus 135 to minus 128. Well, now there are 1-5 odds or 5-1 on. That's an increase of 74%. Manchester City from 108 to 360 or 110 to 360 is an increase of 70%. So it's a big number if you want to back Manchester City figuring it out, or you just want to fade Real Madrid's defense. I don't know how you can trust either defense in this matchup. And that includes the big underdog going away from home and somehow overturning a deficit when they can't hold any leads, no matter what, if they get them, which is a big if. So I think that'll be probably where I finish on this matchup. And that gets us to the end of the show. Went way longer than expected. I hope that was enjoyable to some. And those of you that are with me live, awesome. And if you are with me on the recorded versions, seems like there's a lot of people doing that, I appreciate it. Whether you're on Apple Podcasts or on Spotify, please leave a 5-star review. It's huge for the search rankings. If you're on YouTube, hit subscribe at @thereal_G Warner. And if you're on Instagram and you want the 1-minute video, which we're about to record, go check it out. We did the Need for Seeds College Basketball podcast with Big East Ben at Big East Ben on Twitter if you want to follow him. We did that for pregame.com as they bought our podcast for the year. And that was already released and should be out well more than this, well before this late night edition with the @Real_G Warner. And then still trying to figure out when I'm going to get A Brooks Bets on for our first futures episode for Major League Baseball, but that's coming soon. Get ready. Can't wait. It's going to be a much better season than last year. We hope, or I hope. Brooks was fine. I think we're really getting our best bets. My other bets didn't go great. And I guess it's time for the ultimate best bet. I didn't give out the Wednesday one, so you're going to have to, I guess, listen for it right now. And thanks for hanging in there. Though the host is clearly ready to go to bed, but not time yet because we still got to do this video and I got to queue up my recording device that is ready, and it's time to get into it. Let's do it. Hey, this is @Real_G Warner on Instagram, Patreon, Twitter, and on YouTube. This is the ultimate best bet from the Betting the Pitch podcast. We're 31-11, 74% so far this season. Our best bets, what we do, ultimate best bet, we smash together everything we cover on the cards and pick one of our favorite 2. From Tuesday in Champions League, leg 2 knockout rounds, I like Bruges under 3 goals on the road at Atalanta. And on Wednesday, I like Sporting Lisboa, a half-goal underdog at Borussia Dortmund. But for the ultimate best bet on this episode, like I said, 31-11, 74% year to date. Please check out patreon.com/@Real_G Warner if you want all my plays across all sports, college basketball heating up as we get ready for the tournament. And of course, all the soccer you could ever want and then some. I'm going to go with Sporting Lisboa, half-goal underdog on the road at Borussia Dortmund. I don't trust Dortmund at all, and they have a huge 3-0 aggregate advantage. I think we see Sporting Lisboa eliminated, but winning this match on the road in front of the yellow wall. And that'll do it for this episode. Thank you all for tuning in. I'll see you bright and early in just a few hours But have a great evening. Hope you enjoy this episode wherever you listen to it. And let me know where you're checking in. And if you could hit a 5-star review while you tell me, that would be delightful.
Recording stopped.